So this is a quick bit of video about the strange election season we've got going. It is the oddest one I've seen. I'm 63 years old. I've been paying attention to elections since I was a child, and this is quite the odd one. This is really, really odd. So this won't be the end of it. Our data sets, as described in our October report, and as is being confirmed by the November data sets, are talking about electoral confusion, but not like electoral votes. It doesn't really come out that way. So this is not going to be a repeat of Al Gore, George Bush selection process with hanging Chad and all of that kind of thing. This election, according to our data sets, is going to be really straightforward in the sense that Trump is going to win by a really huge landslide, an overwhelming landslide relative to recent elections. But it won't make any difference. We're going to still go into a big mass of confusion. So our data sets have confusion as being the dominating descriptor for the post-election period, and then that gets really confusing to try and interpret because of the widespread of the language there. And so that is basically what I'm going to try and describe here, and we can all make our own interpretation as to how it comes out. The language says that Hillary is missing and Trump wins, but that it doesn't matter and that confusion reigns. Then we have another layer down, next set of descriptors down further, go into, again, Hillary missing, the deep state is active, and the shadow government is active. Again, Trump wins, and again, confusion. Now, deep state within our data set is defined as the entrenched government that is not elected. So that would be all of the civil servants, that would be all of the appointed officials, that would all be all of the subcontractors to government. Everybody that depends on their living of taking money out of the working public's wallet in the form of taxes, or having the Federal Reserve create money, which taxes used to be the way it went, and nowadays they just create money to pay people. So that deep state is going to try, or it's going to be active. We also have shadow government being active. And so I don't know that they're both active together. Deep state may want to go one way and shadow government may want to go another. I don't think that's the case. I think that the deep state, so an interpretation is that the deep state and the shadow government both are pro-Hillary. We have at our next level down within the data set of descriptors, post-election, we have Hillary missing again, we have the debt bubble bursts, we have foreign repatriation of dollars, and we have fractured politics. These are all very large sets. Now, the deep state and the shadow government are cross-linked into fractured politics. And when we get into fractured politics, it's not fracturing politics, it's fractured. It's a done deal. The thing's totally complete in that regard. We're broken. Our politics are just shattered. We still have the sets showing that Trump wins in this lower level with the debt bubble bursting. But basically, at the level of the interrelationship of the data sets, what we have is the repatriation of the dollars. That is to say, a scenario that would explain it is that Trump wins, the deep state tries to install Hillary Clinton regardless, so the deep state says, no, we don't want Trump. We're going to steal the election and put Hillary in, but Hillary is missing, literally dead, comatose, can't be found, whatever the reason. And so there's mass confusion. This mass confusion within the U.S. is something we've been tracking since about 2002 or so, that leads to this debt bubble bursting. And the debt bubble is going to burst because the election is going to confirm to everybody outside of the United States that we're all crazy, that we're all batshit, and that anybody making a bet on our stability relative to economics is taking the very wrong side of the bet here, and that we're not stable enough to be trustworthy. So the debt bubble burst because the politics are so weird and egregious, because the deep state is supporting the crony capitalists or the cronyists at the top level, and they must have them in power, because once it fractures, everybody that's been a criminal there, everybody that was stealing from the public for years and murdering and all of this other all these other crimes is exposed, is vulnerable. And so they're very, very much afraid of this. Now, our data sets are talking about, for the November sets for the report, they're confirming that this debt bubble bursting is going to be a big deal. It's going to be extra cyclical. So it's going to be a one-off event. It's going to be an occurrence that arises as a result of active, dynamic events within the larger reality, not as a result of a long-term cycle running its completion point. So it will be not unexpected, because we're all expecting it, but it's going to be a surprise on the day that it happens. And when the debt bubble bursts, it will be bursting because of the repatriation of the dollars that are overseas. Bearing in mind, people, 2/3 of all dollars are outside of the country. And so it won't matter what the Federal Reserve does. They're going to kill dollars. They're going to destroy dollars en masse as part of this process. Our data has been forecasting this for some time. However, that won't matter. The dollars are going to come back so fast from so many different sources that we're going to be overwhelmed in this giant pool of hyperinflation, really. But it's hyperinflation of a weird kind, because real estate prices will be falling. Prices for cars and stuff will just be falling through the floor. But costs of food, gas, oil, energy, electricity, everything you might need, clothing, all this kind of stuff will be going up through the roof. And that'll be because no one's going to be taking our dollars anymore, and so people won't be shipping stuff to us because of the collapse of the dollars. Now, we must acknowledge very few of the individuals that are going to watch this video have anything to do with this mess that we're in. Very, very, very few of you. That it truly is the 1/10 of 1% that's caused this fiasco. And they've been working at it since 1913 with the central banks coming into existence. So it is, in that sense, the completion of that long cycle of these people trying to take over the planet and get us into this particular growth uber alles, growth forever format, which does not work. And so we're going to see the end of that. So at that level, it is the end of a big cycle. I'm not sure what day it will occur that the debt bubble officially bursts, but it will be a day when there is so much more selling of United States treasuries, of United States debt in all forms. So many people will be selling it that the Federal Reserve will not be able to keep up printing money to buy it just to keep the stuff from hitting the market. And so it will hit the market, and everything will just go. And it'll be the sign of the total lack of confidence in central banks and fiat money. And that's the pathway that we're on from thereafter. So the debt bubble bursting is a big deal. The reason it burst is a big deal because it's going to burst from our batshit politics and the denial and the cronyism that exists within this is America, USA pop, within our social order. Quick note here, this is not a case of capitalism being bad. We don't have capitalism in this country. Ever since the Federal Reserve was created, we've not had a single capitalistic day in this country because they've been controlling stuff ever since they started. They actually started controlling things in 1910. So really, and if you go back and look, I think you could say that the 1894 convening of the bankers around the remnants of the Masonic crisis of that period was the initiation of the Jekyll Island plot of 1910. So sometime in the early 1890s was the last day capitalism actually existed here in the United States. Since then, it's been cronyism. It's been entrenched interest able to lobby to the point where they're excluded from the business cycle. You know, what's that about? You got a business and you're trying to legislate that it perpetually makes money forever? This cannot sustain. And we're at that point where the cannot part is going to be active. It's going to be dynamic. That'll be November. we may not release a report in November based on what happens over the rest of this month, because the precursor wobbles to the house of the dollar falling over are occurring now. China, Russia, Malaysia, Indonesia, all these countries, Saudi Arabia, they're all selling U.S. debt. They're all selling it as fast as they can, as quietly as they can. They don't want people to really catch on to the fact, don't want other countries to catch on to the fact that they're selling as much of the U.S. debt as they can. They're trying to get rid of 100% of it, because they know that holding that debt is not going to result in anything good. They know it's going to be basically a repudiation, an abandonment of the obligation. There's just no way it can ever be paid back, and we're at that point now where everybody has to acknowledge this, because the government and banksters, well, the banks have facilitated the government eating everything. So, like in Japan, there is no stock market. The central bank and the government own all the stocks. Same thing is going to happen here, except it looks like we have the crash here in very early November after the elections, very shortly thereafter. And we start having a foreign repudiation of dollars. Now, when these dollars start coming back to us, the Federal Reserve is going to destroy them, because they'll be digital. It'll just not accept them as dollars. What they'll do is they'll print more digits, transfer digits to get the paper contracts back, and then they'll destroy the paper contracts. They may make an annotation somewhere on one of their little fake accounting books, but it won't make any difference. They don't want any of this money coming back into the United States. It would basically be 3 times as much currency as we have now chasing the same number of goods. Therefore, all of the prices for the same number of goods are going to go up 3-fold. Now, that actually might be survivable. But the problem is they're going to have to keep printing money to feed into the U.S. population at the same time that all this repatriation of dollars is going to come on back. So it won't be merely 3-fold that will be going up on the price of anything you need to have to buy or to survive. Your life products that you actually use every day, that you'll be requiring to buy again in the next month, etc., etc. All of these kind of things might go up 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 20 times. We just don't know how bad the inflation 6, 7, 8, 10, 20 times. We just don't know how bad the inflation is going to be, nor are we able to predict how crazy the central banks will be in their inability to manage things. We know they're batshit crazy, and they're leading us down into a batshit world, but the pace at which they're going to do that is a little bit undetermined at the moment. So, to wrap up here, we've got election confusion, Hillary missing, deep state trying to put Hillary into power regardless, even though we'll never see her alive again. It's got Trump winning with a landslide and mass confusion as people say, well, he won, why isn't he being installed as president? And then the debt bubble bursts because of the people from outside the United States say, hey, all you people are batshit crazy, what are you doing? And we've got money, we've got debt that we expect to get paid from you? No, we're going to sell that debt. In the selling of that debt, it causes the Fed to go crazy. It causes the Fed to not only have to buy vast quantities of debt from outside the United States, where 2 out of every $3 actually exist, but it's also going to have to do quantitative easing. It's going to have to do hyperinflation just to keep the Federal Reserve System afloat and the banks from absolutely cratering. They will crater, but the Fed is going to fight it. So that process starts right after the election. It'll show up for everybody right after the election in terms of the impact of hyperinflation and everything. But the crash component for your equities and that sort of stuff may not happen until 2017. And we actually have data sets that are still growing that show the Dow at $125,000. $125,000, not $18,000, $125,000. And the reason is, of course, that they're just pumping money like mad. So that $125,000, you might as well consider it to be old style Iraqi lira, because you might as well consider it to be old style Iraqi lira, because it won't be the dollar that you remember. At the point that we have the Dow at $125,000 for it, we'll have Bitcoin at 80808. So 80,000 won to the Bitcoin, or about $12,000 to the Bitcoin, and about $25,000 to an ounce of gold, and somewhere north of $700 for an ounce of silver. So it's not going to be a fun world to live in. If you've got gold and silver, you won't starve. But you'll still have difficulties finding stuff because nobody outside the country is going to sell a shit, because they're not going to take our little green pieces of paper or our electronic digits anymore because they've gotten wise. We're batshit crazy politically. We don't have our house in order. We're never going to pay the debt back. Why should they do business with us? And they're not going to. Especially since at the top of our power pyramid are all these bloodthirsty fuckers that are always intent on using the good people of America, their sons and daughters, to go out and kill other sons and daughters for bankers. So there you go. Vote for Hillary, vote for bankers, vote for the death of your sons and daughters. The deep state wants you to go that route anyway. Deep state says go, go, go. We got to keep everybody employed. We got to keep this going. We got to keep this madness afloat, regardless of the reality and how it all plays out. So that's kind of the layout of it, the rant. Read the October report for details on the confusion, and basically it just talks about it, confusion. But it does go into what's going to happen next March, which is the upset that then leads into the super hyperinflation of 2007. Upset that then leads into the super hyperinflation of 2017. So it wouldn't surprise me to see the Dow drop 3, 4, 5, 6,000 points over the period from, let's say, the election until early March, and then be down to, say, maybe less than 10,000 at that point. So it's going to be big chunks and dribble down, big chunks, dribble down. Then in March we're down maybe 10,000 or something. Who knows? It'll be way down from where it's at. And then the Fed comes in and says, we got to do it, we got to do it. And so they just start printing like mad and buying stocks like mad, and shoot the thing up to 125,000 as they redirect or try to redirect inflation into what they think is a relatively harmless area, asset price inflation. Because everybody that they support, all the people that support the Fed, all those people that are hanging onto that tit with their teeth and grabbing and won't let go, all of those people are going to be so pissed at the Fed by March of next year that the Federal Reserve, the people that actually work there, are going to be under huge pressure. They'll have ulcers, they'll be puking in the morning when they get up just because of the pressure of it all. Many of them will commit suicide or be suicided. It's just one of those periods of time. And so that's how it's all going to play out. Inflation. It is not. 2017 starts not going to play out inflation. It is not. 2017 starts not going to be like Weimar in 1923. Or it'll be much more like Zimbabwe. Or what Nigeria is just hitting now, or Venezuela, something like this. It'll be a modern form of hyperinflation, because it's not going to be ubiquitous. The price of shovels may go up because you may need a shovel to dig a hole to plant a plant. Lying around that will be really cheap. People just won't want kinds of stuff that's lying around that will be really cheap. People just won't want kinds of stuff because they won't be able to afford to hard to predict. But some things like flat screen TVs and such, they won't be able to afford. It's hard to predict. But some things like flat screen TVs, people won't need as many of, and so the price of cars are just going to plunge. Price of housing is going to plunge. Now, part of this is going to be augmented and aggravated people that are a large number of dependent upon very here in the United States tenuous people that are